Detroit, San Francisco is this weekend.
Let's go, baby.
Pretty excited about it. Did you know in the Baltimore-Kansas City game, I want to get to something with that game coming up at 7:15. Did you know, I learned this yesterday, it is the first matchup of MVPs that are both under the age of 30. First in playoff history.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of a wild stat.
It is a very wild stat.
It's the first time they've ever played in the playoffs, too. They met 4 times in the regular season. I think Mahomes is 3-1 against them.
Yep.
But the first time they've ever played in the playoffs.
I think that's why I'm so excited. I don't, we talked about it earlier. Zig or zag. Is this the most excited in the Mahomes AFC title era? You certainly make great points and valid ones that I think a lot of people agree with on the Burrow matchups, the Allen, experiences. I'm just jacked because we haven't had this. We haven't had a Mahomes, Lamar, Baltimore's never really had. They haven't had an AFC title game either. So there, Mahomes coming in as a road dog. There's all of that. The other game, San Francisco, Detroit's interesting because we get Mahomes and Lamar. The other side, we get former number 1 pick Jared Goff, who was given up on and traded to Detroit.
Yes.
Thrown on the scrap heap for Matt Stafford against the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy. The first pick in the draft against the last pick in the draft.
Right.
And I know they're not Lamar and Patrick Mahomes, but damn it if I'm not excited to see which quarterback is going to step up in the big moment, the big stage, and make the big pass or play better than people expect or absolutely choke a game away.
Yeah, it's funny because I think both quarterbacks are going to deal with the same thing, and that is which offense can establish a run and make their life easier. When you look at some of the numbers for the Niners' rush defense since week 14, week 15, it's been horrific.
They're not a great unit.
Not been great late. The Packers ran all over them last weekend, and it helped Jordan Love a little bit, and Detroit's been running the ball incredibly efficiently. We know what the Niners can do with Christian McCaffrey. They get all their wide receivers involved. Maybe Debo's healthy. It looks like he's trending in that direction. So I think the same thing applies. Which offense can help their quarterback that I would argue neither fan base should be fully trusting in? There's a bit of maybe a toe in the water. Okay, I could see it with Goff. I could see it with Purdy, but you're not to the level you are with Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, and you need all the help that you can get. And so whichever offense can run the football better, I think is going to be the team that wins the game.
Yeah, and the other side of that is Detroit has a really stout run defense.
They do.
Their weakness is the secondary. I don't know if Debo will play. As you noted, it feels that way. I saw a clip of him at practice. He looked totally normal, running a great route.
It's different until you get hit on the shoulder.
And this is a little blasphemous to say out loud. Dare you rest him for a completely healthy Super Bowl?
I see the point, but no, you can't risk that.
Okay, all right. It's kind of a stupid suggestion, but I just asked. In Detroit, you might be wondering what they think. One of the radio hosts on 97.1, The Ticket, talked about this, a little bit of a tease, but it's kind of also his opinion of how he views Lions fans. Take a listen to this.
Fans feel very confident. And one of the reasons Lions fans feel confident is because, similar to Baker Mayfield, I don't think that they respect the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers in Brock Purdy. When you think Brock Purdy, most people think he's trash, he's lucky. There's a person that I know who says, well, anybody could be quarterback for San Francisco and get the job done. That would be you, Mike. And I do wonder if, as a Lions fan, the reason why you feel confident, is it because you don't respect the quarterback, that is Brock Purdy, for San Francisco? Is your confidence because of that?
Detroit radio hosts, maybe some fans, although I'd argue most fans are being realistic and they're terrified because they don't want to see their team lose.
Yeah.
The confidence because they don't think Brock Purdy is good. And you are a big Brock Purdy defender. We noted after the Ravens game, even though we didn't have a show after that one.
No, we were off that week.
But we've talked about this of, his stats are great. His record's pretty good, even though that's not necessarily just the quarterback.
No.
As soon as people can, they do want to crap on this kid. And it's interesting, and I don't know if this is Brady leftovers lingering, if it's just because of the system and the skill position guys, or if because of 2 weeks during the entire season, his name was dared to be brought up in the MVP conversation. But he seems to be like a guy that a lot of people want to crap on and not be this rootable, hey, you're the last pick of the draft and you're quarterbacking in the NFC title game?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think a lot of it does come from the MVP conversation, and I get it. Like, nobody looks at Brock Purdy and thinks he's the most valuable player in the National Football League. The Niners were good before he got there. They went to NFC Championship games and Super Bowls before he arrived in San Francisco, and they've continued to be good since he got there. So I understand there being pushback from the most valuable player conversation. The point that I brought up all week, while that is a valid opinion, there wasn't a runaway freight train for the award this year, and that's why he was in the conversation. Brock Purdy had really good numbers. He led the NFL in almost every major passing category. Like, he was tops in yards per attempt, near the top in touchdowns, near the top in yards. Like, go down the list. He's near the top in almost every category. His numbers on the season were like 31 touchdowns and 10 picks. That's a really good year. It's not an MVP season. The reason this year it was debated as an MVP season is, what did Patrick Mahomes do this year? It's like 27 touchdowns and 14 picks. Josh Allen led the NFL in turnovers. Lamar Jackson's going to likely win the award. His numbers don't come anywhere near to what he did the last time he won the MVP. There was kind of a vacuum there, and that's why Brock Purdy was inserted in that conversation. And I would also say, so was Dak Prescott. We lived in a world for like a month where Dak Prescott was going to win the MVP of the NFL, and then they got blown out in the playoffs
He's
again.
still a finalist.
He still might win. Maybe he ends up winning the award still. Like, I understand there being pushback. I think this year was a unique outlier season that if Brock Purdy has this season, the year that Mahomes throws 50 touchdowns, nobody at any point in the season is saying this dude's an MVP. It was just kind of a unique year in that way. The fascinating part about all this for me, and I know that I just said both fan bases should feel the same way. I don't know if Detroit does, but they should. I look at both the quarterbacks this weekend and say, do you fully trust them? Jared Goff, I would argue, has been outplayed in both of their playoff games. I know Baker threw a couple of picks and the late pick ended up losing the game. He was also under consistent pressure, unlike Jared Goff. I thought he made a couple of nice throws late in that game to lead him back into it. I thought Stafford was absolute nails in Detroit. They just couldn't finish drives inside the red zone. That's why they lost that game. I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if Jared Goff is playing perfect football, nor do I have full trust in him going on the road against a good defense without a weird turnover moment. So this idea that Goff is a pedestal above Brock Purdy, I'm just not quite there.
You know what's funny about it? It worked out for everybody, but imagine what you would feel about the Lions going on the road at San Francisco had Stafford, if Stafford's the quarterback.
If he was still the guy.
Like, I think there's like a weird air of confidence for a lot of people, and there might already be that because Brock Purdy has shown that he has flaws. Let me ask you this, Schultze. Is this a redirection of quarterback for the losing team? If Purdy loses at home or Goff looks awful and loses at San Francisco, are both of these franchises rethinking their quarterback position? Or is this just cut and dry? You lose. Great year. Let's go into the summer. Let's get better. Or is it, Jared struggled in some moments, but we got through some of those, and it cost us the season ultimately. And Brock was good, but we saw what Detroit did, and we saw what Baltimore did. So let's think about it, because they were already kicking around Tom Brady this year. Do you think both teams are rethinking their quarterback positions based on what the outcome is?
It's a good question, but I hate the premise of that thought overall when you go to the AFC or NFC Championship game and you're thinking, if we don't win, we need to replace our head coach. We need to replace our quarterback. I just can't stand that thought process by anybody. So no, I don't think you replace your quarterbacks. If Kyle Shanahan's telling Brock Purdy before the season, hey, unless Tom Brady comes out of retirement, dude,
you're the guy.
Well, it should be noted on that too, because that was reported over the summer.
Yeah.
He had major reconstructive elbow surgery.
I know.
They didn't know if he was going to play half the. I put a ticket on Sam Darnold to win the MVP because I thought Brock Purdy was going to miss half the season and then he wouldn't be healthy. He shocked everybody by being healthy right away.
But to Schulte's point, that's the only player for Shanahan, I think, in the Niners. They like Brock, and that was the only player they would bring in.
Yeah, but the two quarterbacks, and just looking at these guys compared to each other in a vacuum, they're both really good. I'm not sure you can put one above the other unless you're looking at, like, I don't know, fourth quarter comebacks. I believe Jared Goff had 3 just this season. Brock Purdy had none. So maybe we're moving the goalposts on Brock every week because we haven't seen like this defining, game-winning moment from him where we're like, oh my gosh, he can lead us. It's because the Niners have so much talent as opposed to Jared Goff, who's been in a Super Bowl before, maybe jettisoned off the heap a little bit, but chip on his shoulder plus that experience, for me, that puts him above Brock Purdy. But no, you're not getting rid of either of these quarterbacks. They're top 10, top 12 in the NFL easy, and why would you move on from one of those guys? That's just stupidity.
Well, but also, welcome to sports. Like this is where we're at. It's
All egos, baby.
If you're not Mahomes, you're not Allen, you're not Herbert, you're not Lamar. And I say Herbert, and people get mad by that because he's been in one time. Like I get it, but like if you're not this prototypical beast with a cannon or the uniquely talented player that year in and year out makes their team great. Like I saw a KC guy was like, how come Mahomes isn't a finalist? I was like Mahomes was obviously the reason, a big part of the reason Kansas City didn't crater, but like the defense carried that team more this year than he did.
Yeah, you can't have 27 touchdowns and 14 picks and win an MVP. I mean, just stop.
Everybody
he's
knows.
Great.
Yes.
He's the best, but he's not an MVP this year.
Right, but what Schultze's hitting at here, and we can go because I want to talk a little more Mahomes, and we got Will Birchfield coming up. What he's right on is like this ever-chasing obsession with, I have to have the Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson quarterback. And like, there's 5 of them in the whole league. I said this earlier this week, like 65 or higher % of the teams probably question their position there.
Easily.
But like, you do have to have an element of patience, and this guy's pretty good. Like, Jared Goff might not be your first pick for quarterback. I don't know, man. He's been to 2 different NFC title games with 2 different teams. He's becoming, I think, the 6th or 5th player to ever do that in league history.
Yeah, there's only 4 quarterbacks who have ever taken 2 teams to a Super Bowl. He could become the 5th all time.
That's what it was. And, like, that's crazy to say. And you can say, well, Montgomery and Campbell, the defense. Hey, not just, okay, cool, but he's still the quarterback. Like, how we separate this stuff is kind of stupid. And I think teams are also just as stupid as we are.
We have spent an entire week trying to say that Josh Allen, not we as in us, but the general football fan out there, this has been the narrative. Josh Allen is responsible for the Bills losing, can't win the big game, that's on the quarterback. Brock Purdy, Jared Goff winning playoff games, well, they don't have anything to do with it. So what is it? Does the quarterback have everything to do with losing or nothing to do with winning? There can't be like sometimes there's a gray area. I thought Kurt Warner had a great tweet this week where he talked about the Super Bowls that he lost. He was 1-2 in Super Bowls, went to 3 of them, and he said the 2 losses that I had, I left the field with the lead and never touched the ball again. And then we went on to lose the Super Bowl. And I have a 1-2 record, but that's on me to lose those games. I don't play defense. I don't right. But it was just a unique.
He did throw 2 pick sixes in 2 of those losses.
100-yard pick six, famously in the Arizona-Pittsburgh one. But it was a unique angle to look at it. Of it's a team game. We don't need to give them all the credit. We don't need to give them all the blame.
Right.
Both these quarterbacks in Detroit and San Francisco are very valuable and important to their teams winning.
Yeah.
And they're going to need some help this weekend. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And windows are closing, and windows are small, and not everybody has Mahomes for 15 years. And so I think that's why you see a lot of impatience at that quarterback position.
And to that point, you win a championship in the NFL 2 ways at the quarterback position, either having an elite Hall of Famer type guy, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or a cheap, really good guy when they're young, like Brock Purdy, or hoping, you get Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence to hit fire before you sign them to their second contract. So the Niners would be stupid to move on from Brock Purdy.
But he's so cheap, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's making $900 grand until 2025.
That's the benefit of having those guys, though. Like we talked about this with Goff the other day. I know we're way over it, but if he signs an extension, if he doesn't get top 10 quarterback money,
that's not how this works. He's going to get the most. Like that. What quarterback?
See, I don't think Goff will. You think Jared Goff will set the record for quarterback contracts?
Can you give me right now? Maybe you can. I'm omitting the situation. Can you give me an example of the last 4 that have signed the deal that isn't topping the next outside of Deshaun? Deshaun, you know that. I know that.
He's the outlier.
He's the outlier. So throw it out there. Okay. Cleveland sold their soul, and they can't do it with him. They do it with 38-year-old Flacco.
Sure.
Every other team outside of stupid Cleveland tops the next team. So he's not going to top it. He's not even going to be top 10. 0 chance. He will be at least top 3.
Yeah, if he's top 3, then you're going up towards $270 million.
I know, but
there's no chance. I just don't.
What evidence do you have that says that the teams don't do it? Maybe Detroit becomes the first one to say, nah, we're not doing that.
I would argue that would be a disastrous move to give him that. I think Jared Goff's fine. You can win with Jared Goff. They clearly are. He's been to another Super Bowl, but part of the value of Jared Goff is he's like the 14th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He at the time had signed the massive contract. I would look at Daniel Jones, who got $160 million, like 100 total guaranteed or 90 guaranteed.
11 touchdowns.
He's terrible, but this is the kind of category that I would put Goff and Purdy in.
You think he's in the Daniel Jones category?
I'm not saying he's Daniel Jones, but I would put him slightly above that, and that's where I think the pay deserves to be. Derek Carr, I think, got an extension when he got to New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if he got I'd have to go look at that, but I know when he got paid with the Raiders, he's
about 150 total guaranteed value. So as long as these guys are willing to accept their value and where they deserve to be slotted in, you can absolutely win with them. The second they start demanding $275 million guaranteed or whatever, like, dude, you're no chance.
I don't think we're quite there yet at that number, but Dirt, to your point, like, I wonder if Jared looks at the situation and also, I mean, this is so easy to say not being in the contract negotiations, but says, like, I love it here. They embraced me. They gave me the offense. His offensive coordinator might not be gone after this year.
Sign a Kirk Cousins deal, like 3 years, 115 fully
Play
guaranteed.
the system that way.
$35 million a year, something like that. It's totally fair for both sides.
It's a great partnership for sure.